I secretly visited my birth mom for months at her job. She had no idea who I was. Then I showed her the letter she wrote me as a teenager. Man, this whole situation feels like something out of a movie sometimes. I'm Chris, I'm 24 now, and for the past few months, I've been well, low-key stalking my birth mom. Not in a creepy way, I promise. It's just, I found her, and now I keep going back to this little diner where she works, but she has no clue who I really am. Here's the backstory. My birth mom, let's call her Gloria, had me when she was incredibly young, just turned 14. It blows my mind thinking about it. I was given up for adoption pretty much right away. My parents, the ones who raised me, are amazing. Seriously, couldn't have asked for better people. They were always open about the adoption. It was never some big, dramatic secret revealed on my 18th birthday. They talked about Gloria with respect and kindness, explaining that she made a really hard choice because she loved me and wanted the best for me. They even gave me a letter she wrote. She'd asked them if they could give it to me someday, if they felt it was right. I still have it, tucked away in a box with other important stuff. It's printed on slightly faded notebook paper, written in this loopy, teenage handwriting. Reading it now is wild. It's full of apologies, saying she wished she could be my mommy but knew she couldn't give me the life I deserved back then. She hoped I was happy and loved. Knowing a 14-year-old girl poured her heart out like that. It gets me every time. She mentioned she was open to contact someday, if I wanted it. Growing up, knowing I was adopted felt normal. Like having brown hair or being right-handed. My parents, Robert and Samantha, made sure of that. They'd answer my questions honestly, even the tough ones. They told me how Gloria was after I was born. Apparently, she asked for some time alone with me, maybe half an hour, before she had to say goodbye. My mom Samantha admitted she worried Gloria might change her mind right then. But she didn't. After that time, she handed me over, telling them to take good care of me. Thinking about myself at 14, all awkwardness, video games, and zero real responsibility, I can't fathom making a decision like that. It must have torn her apart, but she did it. For me. That selflessness gave me the chance to have the life I've had, with parents who provided everything I needed and more. I owe Gloria for that chance, and I owe Robert and Samantha for making that life so good. The idea of finding Gloria was always there, a background hum. When I was younger, it felt abstract. But when I turned 18, 19, it started feeling more real. My parents were incredibly supportive. They said if finding her was something I needed to do, they'd back me up 100%. The problem was, how? We had moved from the city where I was born to a completely different state when I was 11 because of my dad Robert's job transfer. That distance made it feel like finding a needle in a haystack, especially since Gloria Miller isn't exactly an uncommon name. I tried the usual routes, scrolling through endless Facebook profiles, checking adoption registries, but hit dead ends. It felt hopeless sometimes. I figured maybe she'd moved away too, or changed her name. That's when my parents stepped in again. They offered to help pay for a private investigator. It felt like a huge step, almost too formal, but honestly, I was out of options. The PI, a guy named Mr. Henderson who looked like he'd walked straight out of an old detective novel, was thorough. It took a few months, some frustrating false leads, another Gloria Miller who was definitely not her, but eventually, he found her. Still in the same general area where I was born, working as a waitress at a place called the Corner Nook, a small, cozy-looking diner about 2 hours' drive from where I live now. So, for the last 3 months, I've become a regular. Almost too regular. I drive those 2 hours, usually on a Tuesday afternoon and maybe a Saturday morning, just to sit in a booth, order coffee and a sandwich or some pancakes, and see her. And she doesn't know. She just knows me as Chris, the guy who drives a bit far for their tuna melt. It is pretty good, actually. Since my first name is common, and I've been super careful to only pay with cash, my last name hasn't come up. If she saw my last name on a credit card slip, the same unique name as my adoptive parents, it might click, or at least make her wonder. So, cash it is. Always. Gloria. She seems great. Exactly the kind of warm, slightly overworked but genuinely friendly waitress you'd hope for in a place like the Corner Nook. She's got smile lines around her eyes, maybe a little older looking than her actual age, which makes sense given her early life experiences. She hustles, refills coffee with a practiced flick of the wrist, chats easily with the regulars. There's another waitress, Brenda, who seems like her work buddy. They have this easy banter back and forth. Sometimes, Gloria and I talk. Nothing deep, just small talk. The weather, how busy the place is, if I enjoyed the food. She has this habit of calling people hon or sweetie. Need a refill there, hon? Everything okay here, sweetie? Every time she says it to me, this jolt goes through me. It's ridiculous, I know. She says it to everyone. But it feels different, and this intense urge bubbles up to just blurt it out. You know who I am, right? It's me. But I freeze. Every single time. My throat closes up. What if I ruin her day? What if she's not ready? What if she regrets being open to contact? What if she sees me and feels disappointed? Or worse, what if it brings back all that pain she must have gone through? The letter showed she cared, but 24 years is a long time. Maybe she's built a whole new life, maybe dredging up the past is the last thing she wants. I plan it out on the drive over. I rehearse lines in my head. Okay, today's the day. When she brings the check, I'll just say, Gloria, there's something you should know. But then she'll come over, give me that warm, oblivious smile, maybe mention how she saved me a piece of the apple crumble because she remembered I liked it last time, and the words just evaporate. It's easier to just be Chris, the friendly regular. Safer. Less explosive. She recognizes me now, for sure. The first few times, I was just another customer. Now, when I walk in, she usually spots me and gives me this big, genuine smile and a wave. Hey Chris. Your usual spot? It feels nice, like a connection. But it's also agonizing because she knows me, but she doesn't know me. If only she knew the reason I drive 2 hours for mediocre coffee and a decent sandwich. If only she knew that every time she smiles at me, my heart does this weird flip-flop. I know she made the best choice for me. I've had a wonderful life, truly. My parents, Robert and Samantha, are my parents in every sense that matters. But there's this missing piece, this connection to my beginning that feels important. And she's right there, refilling my coffee, completely unaware that her past is sitting in booth number 3, trying desperately to work up the courage to change both of our lives forever. I tell myself, next time. Definitely next time. But I've been saying that for 3 months. How much longer can I keep this up? Update. Okay. Wow. So. I did it. I actually told her. And yeah, calling it heavy is an understatement. My whole body was buzzing with adrenaline beforehand. First off, a huge thank you is in order. After I first wrote about this situation, so many people reached out with support and advice. Reading stories from other adoptees, and especially from birth parents who shared what they hoped for or experienced. That's what really gave me the final push. Knowing that the not knowing could be as hard, or harder, for her than the knowing? That hit home. So, seriously, thank you to everyone who shared their perspective. It meant the world. Lots of people suggested writing her a letter, kind of like how she wrote one for me all those years ago. That idea resonated. It felt poetic, full circle. My original plan was to write something down, maybe hand it to her as she was leaving work. But the closer I got to it, the more it felt insufficient? Impersonal? For me, for this specific moment, I felt like I needed to say the words out loud, to see her reaction in real time, even though the thought terrified me. So, this past Tuesday, I drove down like usual. But this time felt different. I wasn't rehearsing lines as much as just trying to breathe. I sat through my usual late lunch, chatted about nothing important with Gloria, paid cash, and left like always. But instead of driving home, I parked down the street, out of sight of the diner's windows, and waited. Her shift usually ended around closing time, 10 p.m. Waiting those few hours was pure agony. My stomach was in knots. I almost bailed 5 different times. Finally, I saw the lights inside dim, and then Gloria and Brenda came out, locking up. Brenda headed off towards her car, calling goodnight. Gloria walked towards hers, digging in her purse for her keys. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I got out of my car and walked towards her, trying to look casual, which was impossible. Hey, Chris? Everything okay? She looked surprised, maybe a little concerned, to see me just standing there in the near empty parking lot. Hey Gloria, I managed, my voice sounding shaky. Yeah, sorry to startle you. There's something really important I need to tell you. Something serious. Her smile faded, replaced by a look of cautious confusion. Okay? I took a deep breath. First, I need to apologize. For not saying this sooner. For being here these past few months and not being completely honest about why. She just stared, waiting. My hands were trembling as I reached into my jacket pocket. Instead of launching into a big speech, I just pulled out the folded, worn piece of notebook paper. Her letter. The moment she saw it, her eyes widened. Recognition flickered instantly, followed by disbelief, then just pure, raw emotion. She didn't even need me to say I'm your son. She knew. The sound that came out of her wasn't just crying, it was this wrenching sob, almost a scream, like years of pent-up feelings bursting out all at once. Tears streamed down her face immediately. The next thing I knew, she lunged forward and wrapped her arms around me in this fierce hug, sobbing into my shoulder. It was overwhelming. After a second, though, she pulled back slightly, her eyes searching mine, tear-filled. Is this okay? Can I hug you? Yes. Of course, it's okay, I said, maybe a little too loudly, hugging her back just as tight. We just stood there for what felt like forever, clinging to each other in the dim glow of the parking lot lights, both of us crying. It was intense. At one point, her knees literally buckled. I felt her weight sag against me, and I had to hold her up for a minute while she caught her breath, still holding on to me. What really broke me was when she pulled back just enough to look at me, wiping her eyes, and whispered, "Look at you. Look how big you got." Hearing that, seeing the mix of joy and pain and disbelief on her face. Yeah, that opened the floodgates for me all over again. After a few more minutes of shaky breaths and trying to compose ourselves, mostly failing, she suddenly got determined. "Come on," she said, her voice thick with tears but firm. "You're not standing out here. We're going back inside." She wouldn't take no for an answer, fumbling with her keys to unlock the diner door again. Inside, it was quiet and smelled faintly of coffee and fried food. She flicked on a couple of the low lights, locked the door behind us, and immediately went to put on a fresh pot of coffee. Then she cut 2 huge slices of their leftover berry pie, her hands still shaking a little. We sat down in my usual booth, the coffee brewing behind the counter. And we talked. For hours. Until almost 2 in the morning. It wasn't a neat, linear conversation. It jumped around, triggered by questions, memories, emotions. She wanted to know everything. Was I happy? Did I have a good childhood? Were Robert and Samantha good to me? She kept stressing that, needing reassurance that her sacrifice hadn't been in vain, that I'd landed somewhere safe and loving. I told her, honestly, yes. That I had a great life, wonderful parents, and that I was so grateful to her for making that possible. We both cried again then, though mostly her. She confessed something incredible. She said that after the first couple of times I came into the diner, she did get this weird flicker, a strange sense of familiarity. But she'd immediately pushed it down. She explained that for years, especially when I would have been a little kid or a teenager, she used to torture herself. She'd see boys in the park or at the mall who were roughly the right age and find herself staring, wondering, is that him? Sometimes it would get so bad she'd end up crying in public restrooms. It messed with her head, made her feel depressed and haunted. So, when she got that faint feeling seeing me, this older guy who kept showing up, she consciously shut it down. She couldn't risk setting herself up for that kind of heartbreak again, convincing herself it was just wishful thinking. She kept saying how much I looked like my biological father, Mark, especially how he looked when they were young. Hearing his name felt surreal. I hadn't really let myself hope much about finding him, as he was never really mentioned in the context of post-adoption contact. But Gloria explained that they had stayed in touch, sporadically at first, then more consistently. Not romantically, but as allies. They made a pact that if one of them ever had contact with me, they'd let the other know, to make it easier for me if I wanted to connect with both. She talked about him, about them, back then. How scared they both were. She said Mark, especially, had struggled intensely with the adoption decision. He apparently really wanted to try and keep me, figure out a way, but ultimately knew, like she did, that they were just too young, too unprepared. It took him a very long time to come to terms with it after I was born. She said that's probably why he never wrote a letter or left anything. He couldn't fully accept the finality of it, couldn't bring himself to believe he might truly never see me again. Hearing this added a whole new layer to everything. Gloria's life now seemed stable. She met her husband, David, about 10 years ago. She spoke warmly about him, said he knew all about me and had always been supportive of her hope that I might find her one day. She asked if, down the road, when I felt ready, I might like to come over for dinner, meet him. It sounded nice. Really nice. She asked so many questions about my life, school, work, I'm a graphic designer, hobbies, hiking, photography, my girlfriend, Maya. She just soaked it all in. Her overriding concern, repeated multiple times, was simply, "Are you okay? Are you happy?" The relief on her face when I assured her I was palpable. But there was sadness too, mourning the years she'd missed, the milestones she wasn't there for. She admitted that after I turned 18, every birthday was a little harder, wondering if this would be the year I'd reach out. She stayed in the area partly for that reason, hoping it would make it easier if I ever looked. When years passed, she started to fear I resented her, or maybe my parents hadn't told me, or that I'd simply decided I was better off without her. It made me feel a pang of guilt for not finding her, or telling her, sooner. But she quickly shut that down, saying I had nothing to feel guilty about, that I came when I was ready, and that was the right time. Honestly, just watching her was emotional. The way she kept looking at me, like really looking, with this beaming, teary smile, as if she couldn't quite believe I was real. How can someone you've technically never known look at you with such intense love? It's a strange and powerful thing. Before we finally left the diner in the early morning hours, she asked about Mark. Did I want her to tell him I'd found her? She emphasized there was no pressure to meet him right away, or ever, if I didn't want to, but just so he knew. Given how positive and overwhelming the meeting with her had been, I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I said. Tell him. I'd like to meet him soon, if he's open to it. The thought of meeting my biological father, something I hadn't dared to hope for, suddenly felt possible, even exciting. We exchanged phone numbers, hugged again tightly at her car. It felt more solid this time, less desperate. As I drove away, my phone buzzed. It was a text from her. "Thank you, Chris. Thank you for finding me. This is a gift I wasn't sure I'd ever receive. Get home safe." I got back to my apartment completely wrung out but also buzzing. My girlfriend Maya came over. I basically just collapsed onto the sofa and told her everything, and the tears started again, but these were different. Not sad tears, just release. Relief. Happy tears, I guess. Maya just held me while I processed it all. My adoptive parents, Robert and Samantha, were overjoyed when I called them the next day. So relieved it went well, so happy for me. They're eager to hear more, and Samantha tentatively asked if, maybe someday way down the line, if everyone was comfortable, perhaps we could all meet. She said she and Robert would love the chance to thank Gloria and Mark in person. So, that's where things are. It's a lot to take in. It went better than I could have ever realistically dreamed. There was intense emotion, yes, buckets of tears, but underneath it all, there was connection and relief in this burgeoning sense of hope. We have plans to get dinner next week, just the two of us, to talk more. And somewhere out there, my biological father now knows I exist and that I've found my way back. It feels like the beginning of a whole new, complicated, but ultimately hopeful chapter.